In this demonstration, you'll learn how to perform a network scan using Nmap. So I'm already logged into my Kali Linux system, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a terminal up top here on the toolbar to launch a terminal session so I can start using the Nmap command. Now, Nmap stands for Network Mapper, and it's a very common tool that we use to scan networks, identify systems on networks, identify ports that are open on those systems, and also scan for vulnerabilities on the system as well, including identifying version information of the software that runs on that system. So let's start with a ping sweep. So the first thing I want to do is identify what systems are up and running on the network. And there's a couple commands that I could use here. I can use nmap-sp and then the network IP range. So 10.0.0.0 / I'm going to go with it /24. So it's only going to scan 254 addresses, right? So I'm going to hit enter here, and this will take a few seconds. We can see here it's completed already, and it's identified that we do have a system called server-a.quick247.local, which has the IP address of 10.0.0.1. It also looks like we do have a system up and running at 10.0.0.7 as well. So there's a few systems up and running. It says that it scanned 256 IP addresses. So 256, and it's identified that 2 systems are up and running. Perfect. Now, so that's the idea of using Nmap to do what we call a ping sweep. And basically all you're doing is identifying what IP addresses are being used on this network and what IP addresses are up and running. Now, the SP switch that I use there, I've been using that for many years with Nmap. The dash lowercase s means scan, but then the capital P is the type of scan you're doing, which in this case is a ping sweep. So it's easy to remember -SP for I want to do a ping sweep or scan ping. But what's interesting is that a lot of the new certification exams and even the Nmap help doesn't show that -SP anymore as a switch that you can use. And obviously it still works because I just used it. So I do want to mention the other way that you could do a ping sweep with Nmap, because this is the command that would be on your certification exams. So it's nmap-sn, and then same thing, we're going to use 10.0.0.0/24. And it's going to go and do a ping sweep on the network. And notice that the output is the exact same. Right? So again, for your certification exam, remember to do a ping sweep, we can do a -sn. So that's our first thing, is performing a ping sweep. And what I'm getting as a result from the ping sweep is I now have some IP addresses that I want to go and do a port scan against. Now for this demonstration, what I'll do is I'll use this 10.0.0.1 system because that is my server that's running a couple different services. So I'll use that as the example. So now I want to go and do a port scan against that system and find out what ports are open on the system. So to do that, we can use an nmap-lowercase s, meaning I want to do a scan. And remember, we saw that you could do a capital P, which is a ping scan or a ping sweep. But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what they call a TCP connect scan. So I put a capital T there. With a TCP connect scan, it means that the Nmap program will do a full 3-way handshake with each of the tested ports, right? And Nmap has a default set of ports that it'll test the common ports. I think there's about 1,000 of them that it will test. We can specify what ports we want to scan if we wanted to look for a specific service, but for this example, I'm just going to have it scan the common ports. And then you plug in the IP address. In this case, I want to focus on that 10.0.0.1 system that I know is up and running. So I hit enter, and again, this will take a minute or two, I guess not that long. So this did a full 3-way handshake with each of the common ports, and it lists out what ports are open. So it sees that port 21, TCP port 21 is open, and notice that it says, okay, it's an FTP service. 53 is DNS, right? So it notices that's open. I'm going to highlight just a few examples here of common ports. Notice port 80, which is the website, is open. And then down below that, we can see here 1433 is open. There's a number of Microsoft networking ports there as well, like the RPC port is port 135. But we also have the 1433, which is Microsoft SQL Server. So by seeing that 1433 there, I know that this system is running SQL Server. So I could start researching how to exploit a Microsoft SQL Server, for instance. Another port that's interesting is I can see here we have port 3389 open, which is the remote desktop feature, the Microsoft Terminal services. So I know that this system has remote desktop enabled. So I could also research how to exploit remote desktop. So that's with a TCP Connect scan. And we would document these ports as being open ports. Now, before I move on, though, I want to show you could also do a port scan. There's a number of ways, and there's more switches than what I'm showing you here, but I do want to mention the dash lowercase s and then capital S. So this is not a TCP Connect scan. This is what we call a SYN scan. And with a SYN scan, you're only doing like a half, we call it a half open scan. It doesn't do, Nmap won't do a full three-way handshake with the service. And the reason to do that is because it generates less traffic. Generating less traffic means you have less chance of getting detected as you're trying to kind of scan the network and discover services that are open on the network itself. So I'm going to hit enter here, but what's going to happen is it's going to give me a little message that says, sorry, you don't have the privilege to do that. So to do the SYN scan, we have to throw the sudo command in front of it, and then nmap-ss 10.0.0.1. And then I hit enter. It asks for my password. So I give the password. And then what you'll see is the output will be the same. So I can see port 21 is open, 53, 80, right? All those ports are open. So the results are the same. It's just underneath the scenes, how the scan is happening is different, right? So again, the SYN scan doesn't do a full three-way handshake. Another important command for you to be aware of, and I'll go back to the TCP Connect scan. So again, I'm still doing port scanning, but I'm just taking a look at a couple options here. So nmap-lowercase s, capital T, which means I want to do a TCP Connect scan. But what you can do, and this is on your certification exam, you can change the timing of the packets. So Nmap, when it's doing a port scan, it's sending traffic to each port that it's testing. Okay, so with a TCP Connect scan, it's doing the full three-way handshake with each port. What you can do is you can slow down the timing between the request for each port if you wanted to, or you could go and increase the timing. And a reason to do this is if I can go and slow down the timing, so, check port 80, and then maybe a little bit later, check 81. So it's not happening, the traffic's not being generated all at once. And again, the goal is to try to avoid detection. So you can control the timing by using a -t and then a number from 0 to 5. 0 meaning it'll go and space those packets out more. And then as you increase the number, it'll go and send the request out closer together. So very common is like a -T4 or a -T5 to basically say, no, send each request out immediately. We don't need to kind of space the request out to avoid detection. So if I wanted to avoid detection, I would go with a -T0. But if I'm not worried about being detected, I would do a -T4 or T5, right? So we do a -T4 and then the IP address. Now again, when I hit enter here, what I want you to notice is we're not really going to see anything different as far as results go. But again, the -T switch is used to control how things are done underneath the scenes, right? Notice that in this example, I've got port 21 is an FTP service, but I don't really know what version of FTP software. So it is very common let me clear my screen here. It is very common to want to know what version of software is running at each of those ports, and also to know what operating system is running. So with Nmap, we can do a dash lowercase s, which means I want to do a scan. The type of scan goes in capital letters. So in this case, I'm going to do a capital V for version scan. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw in a dash O for OS detection. And then the IP address, which is 10.0.0.1. So this will do a version detection on each port, trying to tell me what version of software is running, and dash O will tell me the operating system. This will take a little bit longer. Okay, it says that it needs more privileges, and so I need root privilege. So I got to throw the sudo command in front of it, and then have it execute. This will take a little bit longer because it's actually performing a number of tests underneath the scenes against those ports to try to figure out what version of software is running on each of those ports. Okay, so it's completed the version scan. Now the output doesn't look great here because my font's a little bit larger. So we can see here that it did start the Nmap scan. Down below that, it lets us know that, okay, it found one host up and running. I'm only scanning one host right now. And by the way, you can do all these scans against the entire network if you wanted to. So instead of putting 10.0.0.1, you could do 10.0.0.0/, 8 or /24 in my case, right? Down below that, I can see here, TCP port 21 is open. It's an FTP service. But notice that this time we have a version column where it's trying to let me know what the version is. Now, I don't have a specific version number here, but I can see that it's a Microsoft FTP service. And then down below that, you can see port 80 is a website using HTTP, and that's Microsoft IIS HTTP daemon 10.0. So I actually have a version number for that one. And then same thing down bottom here with port 443, which is the secure HTTP port. Notice that's version 10 as well. We can see here 1433 is Microsoft SQL Server. Again, it would be great if I had a version number there. I don't, but at least I know it's a Microsoft SQL Server, right? And then down below that, because I did the dash O, it actually is trying to do the operating system scan. So OS scan results may be unreliable. It lets me know. And here it takes a guess that you're running Windows Server 2016 or Windows 10 or Windows 12. And I believe that 10.0.0.1 system is a Server 2016 system. So it kind of makes a guess at that, lets you know the percentage. So it did an aggressive OS guess, and it's 92% sure that it's a Windows Server 2016. So what that means is, now that I know the operating system, now that I know some of the version of the software, now I could start looking for exploits against those specific versions, which is interesting. A couple other commands I want to show you because, again, these are important for the switches are important for your certification exam. The next command I'm going to show you is Nmap. So we just did -sv. What I'm going to do this time is just show you that you could do dash version intensity, and spell that right, intensity. And so same kind of idea, underneath the scenes, when it's trying to figure out the version of the software that's running, it can send a number of different types of packets, and how the system replies is how it figures out what the version is, because Nmap knows that different systems with different software version reply different ways. So what's important is that, again, you can increase the intensity here and have it perform a lot of testing or minimal testing. And again, the reason why you care about this is because if you do minimal testing, then chances are you may avoid detection. But if you do, a lot of testing, then chances are you could be detected by an intrusion detection system or something like that. So you can change the intensity with numbers from 0 to 9, for instance, right? So 9 is a very intense version scan. And again, the hopes is that you'll get very accurate results there. I'm not going to hit enter there just because it'll take a little bit of time for it to execute, but that is a command that you definitely want to know as a penetration tester and also when preparing for your certification exam. One last switch I want to mention is that with Nmap, you can do a -A and then the IP address, 10.0.0.1. If you use the -A, it does a number of different types of scans all in one. So the first thing it does is it enables OS detection, right? So even though I'm not using -O, -A, think of A for all, do all scanning, right? So it'll do OS detection. It'll also do the version detection. So it's like doing a -O and a -SV. It'll also go and run the vulnerability scripts. So Nmap has the capabilities to run vulnerability scripts to identify vulnerabilities on the system. So it'll do script scanning as well, and it'll do a trace route to that target. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit enter here. Now this will take some time to execute. And what I want you to notice here, I do have one more thing I want to talk about. And that is, while this is executing, it's obviously working, it's doing something, but I have no idea what it's doing. So one of the things that you can add to all of your Nmap commands is a -v, which stands for verbose logging, like show information on the screen. So I'm going to do a Control-C to stop the scan. And what I'm going to do is hit my up arrow key, and I'm going to add a -v in front for verbose logging. So I'm still going to do the all scan, where it goes and does OS detection, version detection, script scanning, and trace route. But notice that with that -v, I'm going to have output appear on the screen right away, right? So it kind of lets me know what's going on in the background as it's performing all the different types of scans. Whereas if you don't put the -v, basically all you see is the results, which is good a lot of times because that's maybe all you want. And then you can kind of screen capture those results and paste those in your penetration testing report if you wanted to. But if you want to verify that it's actually doing something when the screen is kind of held up there, then that -v is a good switch. And again, you can use that on any of the commands that I used here so that you get some sort of feedback on the screen of what's happening, right? Which is kind of cool. So in this demonstration, you saw how to perform network scans using Nmap.